Somebody asked me in the comments on one of my previous videos what a LARP was, because I had said that I had spent some time in a vampire LARP, and so they were curious. What exactly is this LARP you speak of? Well, a LARP is a live action role-playing game. So LARP, live action role play, basically. The easiest way to describe it is to think of it as sort of organic street theater. Basically, you have a game system, in this particular case, Vampire the Masquerade. And that game system has its rules modified for physical interaction. Most tabletop games, Dungeons & Dragons, Cyberpunk, Shadowrun, things like that, are specifically designed to be role-played verbally and with dice. In a live-action role-playing game, you're basically portraying the character physically that you would normally just portray verbally with some pieces of paper and sitting around a table. And that primarily is the main difference between a live-action role-playing game and a tabletop role-playing game, is the physicality. You get into costume, and you're physically interacting with other people, you're walking around, you're having conversations, and you're doing it all in character. That's why I say that it's like organic street theater, because basically you're portraying your character, and you're interacting with other people who are portraying their character. The main difference is that it's improvisation, because it's not scripted. You would say what your character would say, they would say what their character would say, and whatever happens, happens. And it's a lot of fun, at least it used to be, where you got to interact with people, and there would be drama and intrigue, and different events would occur. If you're familiar with role-playing games, you understand the purpose of the dice. The dice is basically a tool used to form resolutions for conflicts and events that occur. Like, for example, just a real general example. Let's say the character that you're portraying needs to kick open a door to get into a room. Now, obviously, this is going to be hard to determine the results of. I mean, everybody could just agree and say, okay, you're physically strong enough, you kick open the door. But the random element is where the dice is for, because it's possible in this environment when you try to kick open the door, it's a really well-built door with a really sturdy lock, so you need a certain amount of strength to be able to successfully kick open the door. You're rolling the dice to determine the randomness of circumstances, because maybe you were having a bad day, you didn't eat lunch, you got up late, you're overly excited, you're pumped up on adrenaline. All these different things could happen. So the dice is what determines if things do occur. In a live-action role-playing game, at least in the ones that I've been in, instead of using dice, the resolution was determined by paper, rock, scissors. Now, there's some math involved, because the statistics that are involved with a character in a role-playing game. You have certain stats that you attribute to your character using the rules of the game system to determine your character's strength and your intelligence and your charisma and things like that. And these stats are portrayed. Obviously, if you're playing in a live-action role-playing game, you're supposed to make efforts to portray the character to match those stats. So if your character is very charismatic, you have a high charisma score, then you're going to be more likely to be, you're going to portray yourself as confident, you're going to be suave, and you're going to be, witty, or what have you, and you're going to portray that in your character. So if you have, let's say the system is a list of, the attribute list goes from 1 to 10, 1 being the weakest, 10 being the strongest. If you have a charisma attribute of, say, 3, then maybe you're shy, maybe you have a stutter, something that would detract from your interaction with people on a charismatic level. Now, the stats, there's let's just say on a scale of 1 to 10 again, the average is like, say, 5. Let's say that the average person, if you were to pick 100 people, the average person's charisma attribute would be 5. So that way you know if you're stronger or weaker. That's how if you have a 1, you know that you're really lacking charisma. And if you have a 10, you're a very charismatic person. You're a politician or what have you. So that, in a nutshell, is what a LARP is. It's literally improvisational street theater, where you're taking on the role of your character that would be in the game, and you're interacting with other people doing the same thing. The storytellers, the people that are running the game, are presenting, situations and events that your characters would have to deal with. Like, let's say, a terrorist cell attacks the city, and then your characters would have to interact with each other, and how are you going to deal with this thing, because it's affecting the city that you live in, and you're invested in the city because you have social connections, and all your finances are tied up in businesses in the area, and these businesses will lose business if there's a terrorist cell, because they're closed down because it's a terrorist alert. And how are you going to make money if your businesses are shut down? I mean, that's just a real stupid example, but I mean that's what I mean when I say that there's elements and circumstances that the storytellers present to the players, and they deal with it in character. It's a little bit more nuanced than that, but yeah, that's what I used to do, man. I used to every Friday or Saturday, depending on the game, because there was a bunch of different games that I was involved in. We'd get together and interact with each other. And the great thing about live-action role-playing for Vampire, because when most people think live-action role-playing, they think of games that are set in the Dungeons & Dragons world, where they have swords and shields and armor. And you've seen those videos where they got the guys that are throwing little bean bags and calling out spells like that, lightning bolt or fireball or something. That is a form of LARP. It's not the only LARP, but it's the most well-known version, where you got guys with big foam swords attacking each other in a field. But the great thing about Vampire LARP is that because it's set in modern day, you can just dress like a normal person, You don't have to go and buy a cloak and wear leather armor and stuff, and the main reason why this is a good thing is because these games, the live-action role-playing games for Vampire and the like, take place in very public settings. Like, go to in your neighborhood, go to your downtown area where they have all the shops and they have all the stores and a lot of people walking around. Those are places that those games occur. So, if you got a bunch of people walking around looking like they're from a fantasy novel, that's obviously going to bring a lot of attention to them. When a group of people attack each other in the middle of a major intersection with foam swords, the police are probably going to get involved. So games like Vampire, where you're just dressed up like a normal person, and that was actually one of the challenges of the game, is having the game take place while not being interrupted or interrupting the people around you. The idea behind vampires, this world, the world of darkness, which is this universe that talks about having vampires and werewolves and ghosts and whatnot, all actually real and existing in modern society. The object was to have these games and not really be noticed that we're having them. To be able to go and have your little intrigues and little political conflicts, and do so while everybody else is walking around, they're going shopping. Now, if you've ever seen a Vampire LARP, and some of you may have, then you know that this isn't always, it doesn't always go unnoticed. I mean, you're going to see a group of people walking around in black, wearing trench coats, sunglasses, and it's like 8 o'clock at night. They stand out. Gamer dorks tend to stand out regardless of whatever. But but yeah, that's so in a really a really babbling, roundabout way. That's basically what a LARP is, man. It's just a live-action role-playing game that takes place in a public setting where you're interacting with other people that are also playing and resolving your conflicts using paper, rock, scissors, and the stats on your character sheet. I could explain the paper, rock, scissors thing. I mean, I guess the easiest way to explain it is, if you think about it in terms of, you have, let's say, 6 stats, like, strength, charisma, wisdom, blah, 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 whatever. And you have 2 people that are going to get into a fist fight. Like say you and I are going to have this physical confrontation. Obviously, we're not going to throw punches. That's not going to happen. So how do we resolve it? Well, you you've been training in the military for 10 years, so you're in good shape, and you have a higher level of physical to you. So your strength would be like a 6. And because you're in the military, you were trained by the military, so you have military training and martial arts training. So you have extra character points in those stats. Me, I'm just like a bookworm. I'm more of a person that reads and studies and does investigation and stuff. So my strength is not going to be as high. Plus, I don't have military training or martial arts training, so I'm not going to have those skill points. So my strength is like, say, a 3. Right? So obviously, in that particular case, you'd kick my ass. You'd beat me down. So there would be no actual challenge to the confrontation or the exchange. You would be successfully beating me, and I'd be getting my ass beat. However, if you were, let's say, the same person, you're in the military and you've got the military training, but I am a survivalist nut, where I, go and I on the weekends I go out and I run around in the desert with guns and rucksacks and whatnot, and I do my own training, and I went to Taekwondo when I was a kid and studied it my whole life, whatever. I'm going to have stats. So let's say your stat is you still have a strength of 6, and you've got martial arts training and military training and those extra points. And I've got, I've been working out myself, and I do have some martial arts training, so I only have a couple points. So now my strength is, say, a 5, and yours is a 6. So now it's not so cut and dry. You got one person who's military trained and one person who's trained privately, and they have this conflict. Well, how do you resolve it? And that's where the paper, rock, scissors comes in. Since you have 1 point in advantage because of your strength, you will have an advantage in the paper, rock, scissors. So in other words, if you and I do paper, rock, scissors, and I do paper and you do scissors, then you obviously are successful in the confrontation. You successfully hit me or whatever. However, if I had paper and you had rock, I'd be successful. But because of the fact that you are, you have a better stat layout than I do, maybe my punch isn't as strong, or I do hit you but not as successfully. I mean, that's exactly how it works. The numbers, the stats on your paper, and the success of your paper, rock, scissors determines the outcome of the confrontation of the situation. So that's how that works. Anyway, so hopefully that answered your question about what a LARP is. And yes, I used to do that all the time. I used to be an active LARPer. I was in multiple LARPs, both vampire and in vampire and werewolf, and in the ones that were D&D with the foam swords and stuff. I used to do that all the time. So yes, I was a big dork. Yes, I'm still a big dork, but I just don't do as much dorky stuff as I used to do. So there you go. Hopefully that answers the question for you. If you have any other questions about LARPing, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm always happy to answer to the best of my ability. I'm sure that if you just do a search for LARP, L-A-R-P, you will find a bunch of stuff out there. You will find just as many people making fun of LARPers as you will find LARPers. It's true. Any sort of geekdom always has its detractors. It's just the reality of the world we live in. So there you go. All right. Well, I'm glad I was able to answer that question for you, and I guess I will talk to you later. Take it easy.